Okay.
We can get
Well,
started.
okay. I want to tell everybody greetings. You are listening to the Ron Mark Show and the Truth to Power Show. And we had a little technical difficulty, but we're getting it together. And so, Ron, you're going to be teaching us or giving us some insight on bad debtors don't go to heaven.
All right, yes. That's bad. I did part one yesterday. Looks like I'm getting a feedback.
You getting a feedback?
Yeah. No, I'm not. No. All right. Yes, I'm getting feedback. Oh, okay. I see what's the problem. Hold on, babe.
Okay.
All right. I did my show yesterday, Bev, and I had bad debtors cannot go to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that was can you hear me, Bev?
No, you're kind of breaking up a little bit.
I'm using the telephone so we can get started while they work on the equipment. All right?
Okay.
Am I better now?
Yeah, it's not clear, but I can understand you.
Yeah. She said it's not clear, but you can understand. Well, let's try and go ahead and do it, and if it's too bad, we'll have to stop. But anyway, what happened yesterday, I did a program, and think about Christians and religion and black folks. We're tied into Christianity, and why are we so tied in to Christianity? Because it's all new. The whole religion of Christianity is new to earth. It's a later type religion. But our true religion was Islam. When you go back to the Moors and go back to 1700, they were talking about Islam and all the contracts. They speak of Islam. I hear some music. But anyway, what went on, Bev? What I did, I went back and did some research, and I ran up on the Christian Black Code of 1724. And when I checked that out, I found out that Christianity was taught to us because we were too rebellious after the Civil War. And they made it mandatory that we accept Christianity or die. A lot of our deaths came from the periods right after the Civil War. And the 1724, there was a Christian Black Code set up by the Roman Catholic Church. And it was instituted in 1865 in the United States right after the Civil War. And then it made it clear to me the three badges that I discussed earlier with the audience, where they were talking about emancipation, proclamation, and compensation. And that compensation was to, re-educate the slaves and recompensate the slaves so they could go back into society and be productive. At that point, the racists in the takeover, because as you say and I have said, they were setting up that 1871 Constitution, which was the philosophy of democracy is supremacy, white supremacy. So when you stir all that up in the pot, you have the Christian codes that were used to keep us in line. Now, when I mentioned the part about going to heaven, I have been told several times by Baptists and whatever, Christians, that if you don't pay your bills, it's a sin not to pay your bills. because you made an agreement to purchase or to buy something, and then you failed to pay it. So now the question comes, if you fail to pay it, are you there, Bill?
I'm here. You breaking up, but we're trying to listen to your engineer get things put together.
Yeah.
What about if I hang up and call you, and if you see the 347 number, maybe that'll connect that.
Well, if you call me directly at this phone number, it will be a better. And that's that 779 number. That's the number I'm on.
Wait a minute. The 87. That's your number.
No, that's Wiley's number.
Oh, okay. Well, wait a minute. I don't want to give Wiley's number over the air. Okay. Let me.
Text it.
Yeah, text it to me, and then I'll hang up.
And I'll text.
Okay,
right,
we want to get all this information. Okay. Okay, everyone, just hold on a minute. We're still trying to work through this. Just be patient with us, and we shall.
Yes, sir. Rastafari. Jah make the blind man see, jump up and feel irie. He make the lame man walk, make all the dumb start talk. That they may all be one, as thou have a heart in eye, and eye in the eye. That they may also be one in eye and eye, that the world may know and believe that thou hast sent us. And the glory which thou gavest unto I and I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I and them, and thou and I, that they may be made perfect in oneness, and that the world may know that thou hast sent I, and hast loved them, even as thou hast loved the I. Ready or not, you're gonna get a shot of this red hot black African love. Step on the scene, and them are pure and clean, ice cold and green, black African love. Ready or not, you're gonna get a shot of this good red hot black African love. Don't be so mean, your love is pure and clean, oh Lord. It make the sick get well, redeem the wicked from hell. To make a deaf man ear, I'll make the careless start kill. Oh Lord, come now, all people, let's gather near and listen well clear the words that I and I, Rastaman, I've come to sing to you.
Beverly D? Yes.
Yeah.
Is that much better?
Yeah, much better.
All right.
Okay, we can hear you good.
Okay. Well, we'll continue. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, according to the engineer, when we take our break, we're going to try and go back to WebEx. He fixed it. Yep. But for right now, let me just bring you up to date on what I'm talking about. Number one, we as blacks in America are tied into Christianity. And it's a question as to why are we all tied into Christianity. Second question, the black ministers seem to get a free ride, a free pass in white America because they're ministers. And they are, all of them teach, their teachings is either or not progressive, not freedom. They don't talk about freedom. They don't talk about nationality. They don't talk about what it takes to build a nation or to mend a nation of people that were in bondage. It seems that they're doing the opposite of the three badges, which was emancipation, proclamation, and compensation. The compensation was supposed to be the part where you get psychological help, you get financial help, social help, and everything that one would need to get back in society. But since I've read and got involved with the real causes of the Civil War, which was the mulattoes, and since I did some digging on that filthy Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, and what he really did, it dawns on me clearly that the powers to be took the Emancipation Proclamation and flipped it and turned it into a nightmare by promoting ministers to teach us Christianity and put us in bondage. Now, everything that they used was given to them, and I'll get to that in our next half, was given to them how to teach Christianity. It was given to them through the Roman Catholic Church. Now, I'm talking tonight about can debtors go to heaven? Can bad debtors go to heaven? What I'm really saying is, we are taught that if you make an agreement and renege on the agreement, you are really can't be trusted, which means that you go into a negative mode as being one that has sinned, and sinners cannot go to heaven. So I can see easily how these ministers can preach this trash and have us bamboozled into the state of mind that we're in. They've had a long time to do it. They have been rewarded by the system to get privileges and benefits. All ministers have privileges and benefits. So the question is, how do we break out of this? Now, my only answer to that is to bring it to the forefront and expose the issue, and then let everyone make up their own minds. The Black Christian Code was written or founded or put together in 1724. So all of you out there that have your computers ready, go to look up or Google Black Christian Codes 1724. There's 56 different articles. And if you read the articles and look at the articles, you can see why we are in a state of nothing but chaos, confusion, and idiocracy, if that's a good word. Just a damn fool. That's all it amounts to. That's what I'm trying to say. And it was done through the privileges of the system and the ministers, and then they expanded it into the politicians who gets benefits and privileges, and then our entertainers and everything. You got it ready?
Well,
yep.
Go use WebEx.
Okay. They want to use WebEx, Bev. I hate to do it, but we got to stop again.
Oh, okay. So, well, now,
it's going to be.
Which do I call in the same PIN number?
You're going to call in on WebEx. Yeah, back to WebEx.
Okay, but all the numbers are the same that I did last week.
Oh yeah, the numbers. Let me give you that access. The call-in number is the same.
I got that.
Okay, and the meeting number is 561. The access number is 561. The last three numbers, and I believe that's the same thing.
I don't have that one.
All right. Well, I'll send them to you right now.
Wait a minute. Okay, yeah.
191.
Okay.
You got it?
Go ahead. I got it. Go ahead.
Oh, 191-233-561. 199-23561. Yes.
Say that again, please.
191-233-561.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a break and we'll hook back
up again. Make it about 5 minutes.
Okay.
That'll do it. Yes.
Ron, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, and we got a good hookup. We got the sound down a little bit there. You still there, Beth?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Beth, now. She can't hear me.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes, that's it. Okay, let's get started. Get going.
You were sounding better on the cell phone.
Better than now, Beth?
Yeah.
I was sounding then than now.
Yeah.
Wow.
You were more clear.
Wow. I don't know.
Turn it up a little bit.
Oh yeah, I can do that. All right. Tell me when it's too much. Tell me when you can hear me good.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Let's go with that. All right. Now, I'm going to just say briefly that the Christian black codes, that's what we're talking about. And I wanted to get your attention by giving it the title, Can Bad Debtors Go to Heaven? Because the Christian doctrine teaches us a lot of things in a very suspicious, psychological, as you would say, Bev, that European psychology.
Yeah.
Yep. And it brainwashes us into certain periods. For example, most black people do not want to file bankruptcy. They're afraid to file bankruptcy. They don't give you a good answer as to why. But I think I know the answer because it's not the Christian thing to do. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous because we're living in a fictitious society that is full of loopholes, lies, cheats, misinformation, and what have you, and they act like it's the truth. But I've been teaching all the time that it's a damn lie. Everything they've taught us has been a lie. So if we're going to base our decisions on a false premise, then we're really going out the world ass backwards. So when black folks say, for example, if I make a deal or a contract to pay something, and then I renege for any reason and don't attempt to make those payments good, then I am a sinner in the fact that I have not lived up to my commitment. So that makes me a sinner. So now, how many sins can you have before you're allowed into Christian heaven? I'm going to make it clear. I'm talking about Christian heaven. I ain't going there with myself. I'm talking about what is taught in that, in the religion itself. Everybody's trying to go to heaven, so let's just keep it there. Now, I'm saying that we need to talk about it because it's a lie, a stone-faced lie. Now, I'll read briefly a small paragraph that says, Christian black codes of 1724 were initiated during the Reconstruction after the Civil War to control blacks after they were emancipated. Now, that in itself tells you there's something wrong with Christian codes, the Christian doctrine. If they got a black code set up known as Christian black codes, and they're teaching it to us from birth to death, and they're telling you that it came into being during Reconstruction, which would be after 1865. And it was done because they wanted to control the blacks. Now, if everyone was released, and we can just loosely say that the chains of slavery were released with the Emancipation Proclamation, but what about our minds? What about the third part of the badges where we would be compensated? In other words, they would help us mend our minds so that we could learn and act and be a part of society. Nobody thinks about it. Okay? So passed by the southern states, instead of giving blacks the same rights as they gave the whites. Now notice how they said that, because I've been telling you all the time, white folks were in slavery. Lincoln freed white slaves. He didn't free black slaves. Or the so-called emancipation did not free black people. It freed white people. And for some reason, we just can't get in our minds that the slaves, there were just as many white slaves as there were black slaves, and there were probably twice as many mulattoes as there were white slaves. But they didn't give them the same rights. So the codes were limited, and it limited the freedom of black folks. And it was done on a one-on-one basis. So what they did in one state did not necessarily be a part of another state, or one plantation didn't do what other plantations. They all had their own ways of dealing with this thing. They included that blacks had to be in service of a white person, that they could not have congregations together. Blacks could not be together in congregations. That they could not speak out. Lord help me, I'd have been gone. And that they could not, and that they could not have weapons. Now notice there was no laws on the books to prevent any of this from happening. This was created through the black codes. They also included that blacks could not go out without a white supervisor. Lord help us. Thus, blacks had to take on the religious and the religious and holidays and gods of white. Let me move it up. Where you at? Here we go. Of white superiors. So we had to take the religion of whites and the holidays of whites and the gods of whites. And we know the gods, where the Son of God was a peckerwood on the cross, Jesus Christ, let me give him his name. And if he's the Son of God, then logically you're going to have to believe that God had to be a white man, or a white person. These same black codes were said to have been made null and void by the ratification of the 13th Amendment. Although many southern states adopted black codes to keep former slaves from voting and impose other restrictions. And I've already proved to you that the 13th Amendment did not free you from slavery. We went through that, and I'm going to tap on that a little bit later today. The 14th and 15th Amendment were supposed to have eliminated these codes. But as you read them down below, and we're going to get to them, and study the law of the land in conjunction with religion and politics, you'll discover these codes have been modernized in a disguise, and many are still in effect today. Now, that in itself is enough to raise your eyebrows to, can you really go to heaven? If you're taught in the sins, now you know you can't go to heaven if you're a sinner. Better yet, they teach you that, because they decide what a sin is. Now, if they never tell you that there is no money, only your signature creates this thing called currency, your signature. You buy a home, and I'm going to use a house as an example. It's paid for when you purchase it. When you sit down at the closing table, and technically it's bought before you get to the closing table, because once you fill out the application for the loan, it is processed. The application is processed into a promissory note, because you are applying for money and you're promising to pay that money. Now, so when you sit down, you're only solidifying the promise, because now you're going to sign the promissory note and you're going to sign the mortgage. So your home is paid for. So where's the sin? But they use trickology to make you think that you must make payments. And if I had a way of teaching everybody the fact of that trickology, we could be free overnight. But it's difficult because people just cannot seem to understand that there is not any money and that your signature creates the currency or the credit. Your signature creates the credit. And some people are worth more on signature than other people. How is that possible, Ron? It depends on your income and your payment history. Now, if you're not making, and I'm going to deal with this, if you're not making payments, how can you have a history? Very easily, because you're paying for everything in cash. Everything you have possessed.
Ron? Ron, March. Ron, are you there? Okay, you're back.
She said I'm back now, but that thing it went out, right?
No, it didn't go out. We were trying to get you. It's a little bit distorted, so we're trying to get it.
Right. Okay. Are you there, Biff?
Yeah, we're here.
All right. So we got so many distortions. I'm struggling trying to maintain my
pattern. Huh?
Yeah. It's almost like a battlefield. All right. Anyway, let's look at it again. We're talking about sinning. And you know your religion is based on sins. So the first thing that you want to do is be a good person. Everyone wants to be a good person. So now the guidelines, where does one find the guidelines to be a good person? You have to reach for your religion. Okay? So when you reach for your religion, you are Christians. Probably 99% of black folks are, well, let's say 90% of black folks are Christians. And to be a Christian, you are under the Christian black codes. And they're telling you, they taught you this madness in order to control you. What kind of religion could that be that I would want to be a part of that is going to control me? And as I just displayed the concept of sinning, and then the premise is you're not making payments, but the truth is you made the payment when you signed your name. Can you understand that, Beth? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. So when your signature, when you sign your name, you already paid.
Yes.
Now that is so hard to comprehend.
Okay. Well, look at it like this. If you wanted a home and Beyonce wanted a home, and Beyonce wanted to buy a house over on Rutherford and 7 Mile, and you wanted to buy a home in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're going to be rejected on your signature, but she's going to be accepted. If you turn it around and put you on 7 Mile and put her out there, she's going to be also accepted out there, and you're going to be accepted on Rutherford. Why is that? Because your income dictates what you're worth.
Right.
Okay. So that's why some people can get homes and other people cannot get homes. Mm-hmm. The dollar amount of the homes dictates from your income if you can afford to pay for it. Now that's a real sticky stumbling block because nobody knows why and how they got involved with the credit bureaus. Nobody asked you, did you want to be a part of it? You don't know how they're being paid because you never paid any money to the credit bureaus. And definitely you didn't tell somebody to track your finances. Mm-hmm. So where would they come from? Now, I don't have the answer other than the fact they are part of the New Deal that was set up in 1933 in order to establish financial stability. Let's put it that way. Because if you believe that your signature was worth trillions of dollars, you'd run out and buy that home in Beverly Hills or Hollywood and would be very upset if you couldn't get it. So they have to have a way for you not to be affordable for that house. So all they can take in is what is your pay history and what is your income. Can you afford it? And that's where they get those numbers, 800, 600, 700, and 500, and 400. That's where all that comes from. Now, I can agree with that only on the basis of once I establish myself, I'll have 900 credit rating where I can purchase that home way out there in Bloomfield Hills, because my pay pattern is going to show that everything I purchase I've paid for. Now they want to know, well, where are you getting the money from? Now, that's a question that's got to be answered. I need to take that to Jonah Bay and find out how do you get around it. I think I know how, but I don't want to expose it on the air because I may not be correct. But I think I do know how it's done. But let's get away from that for right now. Let's talk about black folks going to heaven and these daggum Christian black codes. Article 1 of the Christian Black Code says, decrees and expulsion of the Jews from the colonies. That was number 1. Run the Jews out of the colonies. So if they're talking about colonies, what are they talking about? What country are we talking about, Beverly?
They're talking about America.
No.
USA?
There was no colony. No, they were talking about United States. The colonies were in the United States, the 13 colonies.
Oh, okay.
You dig? The 13 colonies was in the United States. So there was no way for them to deal with America because they couldn't come in America back in 1800s and 1700s because the king, remember, the proclamation line. They were not allowed to cross the Alleghenies. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
have they ever obeyed any rules and laws?
No, they circumvent it, and by circumventing the law, they don't think that they are breaking the law. They circumvent it because the English language is so loose that they will set up a treaty. That's why they always want to do a treaty, because they know they can circumvent it. You dig? But when you get something, and I'll say this, the way the Bible is written, what it says or states in the Bible is difficult to get around it. When you use the Arabic language or the treaties that we gave them, they couldn't get around the treaties. All they could do was abide by the treaty. That's why they didn't want those treaties, but they had to get them in order to be on the waters. But they immediately began to circumvent. And as they, right here is a good example on number 1 article, because they're talking about expelling the Jews from the colony. Now, there was only 13 colonies. You see what I'm saying? So they had a right from the Constitution to set up those 13 colonies because it was known as United States. 13 colonies united under one ruling of United States. They didn't mention America. If you read any of your ancient readings, and I'll say ancient, but historical readings, if they're talking in any year, 1600, 1700, 1800, and up to 1850, 1871, everything was United States. Antebellum, all of that was United States. America had nothing to do with United States. But then when you get past that and get into this so-called corporation known as United States of America, now they start talking about the states, Wyoming, they talk about Minnesota, where they have stolen all the land and all of that trash. So most of the rules of racism were set up in the 13 colonies. that's where the idea of white supremacy got a good toehold, and then they begin to spread that all over the land. And we can't seem to understand that. I see it clear, but most people can't understand it, because when you read something that happened in the Boston Tea Party, you don't put yourself back in 1790 when it happened. You're reading it from 2015, and you may make a statement. Well, why didn't they move the tea and put it over in the warehouse and sell it or something? Well, during that period of time, they could not do that because of the laws that were set up. See, we got to figure. I don't know what you would call it, because I'm not that educated. But you got to put yourself in the time frame as things happen. Okay?
Right.
Okay, now we go to number 2. Make it imperative on masters to impart religion instructions to their slaves. Make it imperative on the masters to impart religion to the slaves. In other words, give them instructions on how to teach it, what to teach, and what not to teach. And the Christian codes were known by the Europeans so that they can watch the blackies and make sure they didn't talk about anything that would be close to freedom.
Well, they still do that today, because the preachers, they have certain scriptures and lessons that they have to do. They can't, a lot of them have to follow some kind of order.
Yes, but remember, most of the ordained ministers have went to some type of what they call a seminar school,
theology or
whatever, and they get those certificates and degrees from those schools, so they are taught the Christian code in disguise. You see, they're taught in disguise. So when they come out, they got a mouth like a snake. They can continuously talk the trash of it, but they're really talking about the Christian codes. So you're totally correct. Then when you get to the unorthodox ministers or those self-ordained ministers, they just follow the lead of some other minister that promoted them to that position. And that is, you go back, if the daddy was taught Christian codes and the mama was taught Christian codes, the children will learn Christian codes. Children grow up, they know Christian code, they're going to teach it to their children. So yes, these same ministers had that slave mentality that started in 1865 with this so-called Christian black codes of 1724. They were started back. We go to their schools. That's the first thing we should try and do, is get our children, get our own schools, and stop that damn madness trash that they putting in our kids' heads. And they will use professors, PhDs. They'll use all types of heavyweights to finagle issues and systems into our heads, so that we will learn to be haters of ourselves. We can't explain how we're in this condition. We don't know how they did it. They got movies, they got radios, they got TVs, they got everything. And everything they have is molded in one direction, and that is keep the Negro dumb. And they'll use any means to get that across. And you'll have to fight some people to just tell them to look at it. That's why I'm doing it today and yesterday, trying to make people look at it. You ain't got to agree with me, but I'd love for you to find a fault in what I'm saying. Because, see, some people are saying, for example, my sister, we got in a conversation about Jesus. Where did he come from?
Oh, no, you didn't.
Oh, yes, I did. And I lit her up. And she got so upset about it. So she told me in so many words, it doesn't matter what color he is. He was righteous. I said, where did you get that from? Who told you he was righteous? They did. Well, if they told you you was white and you're admitting that you don't care, but every time you open up a book or go to one of these churches, they got a white Jesus hanging up there. And I said, right now, if you close your eyes and we play a game and I say baseball and just imagine what I'm saying, put it in your mind. And I did that with her. I named 10 different, and about the 8th item I mentioned Jesus, and she opened up her eyes. I said, what color was it? She didn't want to talk about it. I said, well, you just don't matter. But it's already in your subconscious brain. That's the point I'm trying to get across to you. And just like I say to you, our ancestors were kings and queens, and they would be rolling over in their graves to see the condition that we're in today. So if that's true, and I know that in my heart to be true, well, I had to come through a period of black codes. So I know it's there. I lived through it. My grandparents and my father back in Illinois when I was coming up. All of this prevailed. Now, our mothers knew, our righteous mothers knew how to protect their children away from this madness because they didn't want their children to grow up and be murdered by police. The Willie Lynch syndrome was set up to teach black mothers to put into their male children to be punks. You may not believe that, but it was love. Mama loved me to protect me and tell me how to act when I get around white folks. Now, I was very, 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 very lucky to leave home at 17. I didn't hang around with Mama's apron string, as most of these men today do or did. And the longer you stay with Mama, the more Mama loves you, and the more she got to keep you out of trouble. Don't talk back, that type of stuff. And I just read where you weren't allowed to speak out. Where did Mama learn that? She learned it through the Willie Lynch syndrome. Once they brought that male out, tied him to a tree, and took a whip and whipped him till all his blood and bones and everything was showing. And then cut him down and just let him lay there. And Mama and the children had to look. They brought out all the females and all of the male children, probably the male and female children. And they had to watch it. Why did they do that? Because Mama would make her mind up. She did not want her sons to be whipped like that. How you going to stop it? You got to teach them how to be punks. How to bow down to that damn peck of wood so he won't whip you like you just saw that one get whipped. They had to do it. So I lived through that. That's my point in bringing that up. My ancestors were kings and queens that I have in me, and I'm bringing that out more. But I know it happened while I'm reading because I lived through it, and my memory brings it up that it happened. I sound like an old preacher trying to run something I believe. Think of it. Let me back up off of that. All right. Now, number 3, permits the exercise of the Roman Catholic Creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. I'll say it again. Permits the exercise of the Roman Catholic Creed. I need to look up that creed and see what that really is. Roman Catholic Creed. Only. You can only exercise that. Every other mode of religion is prohibited. So now you can see how they would weed out Islam. And now you will see why the Catholic Church was against common law. Now you'll see why Pope Pius did what he had to do, because if you are sovereign and believe in common law, that means you can pick and choose your own superior being. And you would not tolerate some half-step Jesus to get to your human being, or your superior being. And that's a doctrine that destroys the Catholic Creed, because you got to look at the Pope as being the stepping stone to get to God. Correct me if I'm wrong, or forever hold your silence.
You're right, but then you look at it, he's the only doorway to get to heaven. But then in his house, he's up there molesting young boys and doing some of everything.
Yes. It's unbelievable. Number 4, Negroes placed under the direction or supervision of any other person than a Catholic are liable to confession. No, to confiscation. Confiscation. What is that word? They can confiscate. That means that they can take the slave away from you? I need to look that word up.
It looks like that's what it means.
Yeah, I'll take a quick look during the break. But notice how that's worded. Negroes. They didn't say blacks. They didn't say coloreds. They didn't say Moors. They said Negroes. So we got to figure out who were the Negroes during 1865. We know who the Negro is today. He is everything that's of color is a Negro. But I'm guaranteeing you that word Negro was for slaves. Because they had free black persons, freed men. They had mulattoes that were brown skin or tan skin, but they had to have a label on the masses of people, which was the majority, and they called them Negroes. Now, that was in 1865. And that was when they knew who to fool with of color and who not to fool with of color. And don't forget, we're only talking about a small area. A small area of the United States. 13 colonies of the United States is like, a 25th, what would it be? Less than 5%. Less than 5% of the land was where all this stuff went on, known as the 13 colonies. And we never looked at it like that. I'll tell you something else that'll blow your mind. And I'll ask the question first, Bev. The Revolutionary War. I better give you the answer because I know you don't know. The Revolutionary War, I say that because I don't want to, front you off. The Revolutionary War was fought, and the percentage of people involved in the Revolutionary War was 4% of the population of America.
Now, you're talking about America, not the United States.
Yep, because during the Revolutionary War, there was no United States. They were fighting to create United States. They put those 13 colonies in America and then called them United States. But only 4% of America fought in the Civil War. Isn't that strange? And they, quote unquote, defeated the British. So you know something wrong with that. They didn't defeat the British. British own more of America today than they've ever had ownership. And I can prove it to you with one word with 3 letters. BAR is in every state of the so-called Union and the 5 territories. So now, who owns the United States? The British Accredited Registry. So, again, they lied about the Revolutionary War. That was something that was what I call revisionism, historical revisionism, to create the story that there was a Revolutionary War. Nobody believes it.
Now, Ron, if we take a 5-minute break, can you go back to Wiley's phone?
Yeah.
You are so much clear.
All right, let's do that.
It's a lot of noise and a lot of distortion going on as you're talking.
Okay. Well, call my number.
No, yours wasn't good. It was when we had Ron.
Oh, mine was a day, huh?
No, yours was the worst of all.
Beat your phone. Yep. All right. Let's take 5 minutes, and I'll wait on you to send me.
Okay. We stopped on our. This is one of the choppiest shows I've ever done. Not ever done, but it's one of the choppiest shows.
Yeah.
But we got to deal with it. Are your audience still there?
We still there.
The listeners still there. All right.
Yeah.
We did number 4, that Negroes were placed under direct supervision of the Catholic Church. Or, let me say it right. Negroes placed under the direction or supervision of any other person other than a Catholic. So the Catholics had to be supervised, are liable to confiscation. Number 5, Sunday and holidays are to be strictly observed. All Negroes found at work on these days are to be confiscated. There it is, confiscated. So what they're talking about, they're going to take the Negroes. If they're working on that day, the slave master would lose the Negroes. Number 6. And notice how they said most of these rules are still used today.
Yeah.
Now, we're not going to admit it, but every Sunday, the whole city of Detroit is kind of like on a shutdown between 9 o'clock and 2 o'clock, because everybody goes to church.
Yeah.
Now, all you got to do is ask one question. Where did that come from? Now, they're going to say they're going to see Jesus or they're going to the fast. All of that. But that was brainwashed in them, man. They were programmed for that. And to tell one of them, especially those young ladies, they get beside themselves when you bring up religion or church. Oh, they go off the deep end. Okay? Number 6, we forbid our white subjects of black sexes, or both sexes, to marry with the blacks under penalty of being fined and subjected to same other arbitrary punishment. Prohibited that. We forbid all curators, priests, or missionaries of our secular or regular clergy, and even our chaplains in our Navy, to sanction such marriage. We also forbid all of our white subjects and even the manumitted or freeborn blacks. Notice how they differentiate. Freeborn blacks to live in a state of concubine with slaves. Now they're talking about freeborn blacks. What happened to the Negro?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So they had to differentiate the colors of persons back in those days, because they were creating what we know today as white supremacy. And until they could get all blacks under one label and all whites under another label, did that supremacy begin to materialize. And don't forget, in 1870, 1 year before they opened up the Corporation of the United States of America, they passed a law and put it in immigration that all Europeans of European descent will henceforth be known as white persons. See what they did?
Well, they was known as what?
White persons.
Okay.
Look up 1870 immigration law. And then you could put, after immigration law, put in white persons and read what come up. I did a show on that. They passed a law, immigration law. They put it in the immigration that you had to be a white person if you came from certain parts of Europe that they would call Europeans. Okay? Should there be any issue? Should there be any issue from this kind of intercourse? It is our will that the person so offending and the master of the slave should pay each a fine of $300. They call it livres. I don't know what a livre is, but I'll say $300 fine. Should said issue be the result of concubine of the master, his slave, of the master, his slave, said master shall not only pay the fine, but be deprived of the slave and of the children, who shall be adjudged to the hospital of the locality. Man, oh man, they take the children away. So the concubine would be when the white masters had sex relation, if they got caught, because they were creating that mulatto. And don't forget, this was written in 1724, when the 13 colonies were put together. So they was only talking about those particular states that came under that 13 colonies. Number 7, ceremonies and forms prescribed by the ordinance and by the edict of 1791, I'm not familiar with that, for marriages shall be observed both with regard to free persons and slaves, but the consent of the father and mother of the slave is not necessary. That the master shall be the only one required. So the master would say who would get married and how they would get married. This thing goes on and on and on, and it's talking about the rules that were set up. And remember, it was only set up because they did not know how to handle the slave, and they claimed that he was rebellious. So what does that tell you? That tells me that in the 13 colonies, they had these rules where white supremacy was everywhere. But once the Civil War took place and they began to unite what they called United States, they were meeting black folks that they had never seen before. So you got to keep that in mind, because we're talking about, I mentioned 6,000 tribes met to take care of Custer up in the Indian Territory, for example. 6,000 tribes. And you could almost say that each tribe was at least 25 people or more. I would say it had to average at least 25 people, because a tribe was a family.
Right.
And they had rules as to how you married in and out of the family. Because of the Moorish laws, the woman was the owner of the land. And when you read Indian laws, all of those laws were in place. No one can tell me why every Indian movie that come out of Hollywood, the warriors all wore aprons. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah.
They have on a pair of pants, but they still have a little apron hanging in front and in the back.
Right.
That is a sign of a Mason.
Right.
So, this thing is so clear.
And then you see the pictures of the British royalty or whatever they was, Parliament. They had aprons on too.
Yes, they did. And they had wigs on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a story about why they wore wigs. They were imitating us with our nappy hair.
Right.
Because Britain was black at one time. That miscegenation is when you start mixing blood. The timeline and the history of miscegenation. I've never ran up on it. I've only been told about it. But it's difficult for me to even visualize what was then and what is now. Meaning, there are a lot of blacks in Britain over there now in England. A lot of blacks.
Yeah.
But the controlling factor over there are all Europeans. They're Irish.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to ask, where did they come from? Well, I would say they were the original Europeans that did not mix with the blood with the blacks. And I can't prove it, and I just haven't seen anything in that area that I can put my mind to that will explain to me what I'm looking at. Probably some of the movies they put out, Land of the Apes, somebody mentioned last week, and that one, everybody was blue. Avatar. Avatar might be another one where they can explain some of that, but I never look at those types of movies. But it's really a frightening, when you start looking into history and you know the facts, it's very difficult to try and explain what you really see,
Right.
It bogs your mind. So,
well, we got a caller, Ron. You want to take a call?
Yes, please. Let's take a call.
Okay. Area code 314-761.
Hey, greetings and honor.
Greetings, sir. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? This is Sai. How you doing, Ron? And how you doing?
I'm very good. Yep.
Good.
Okay,
good.
I'm gonna try to keep it as concise as possible, but this is most definitely online what you're talking about. Pope Pius IX, of course, he pushed the infallible laws and mainly the manumission. The manumission has to be emphasized because this came from the old Roman law they call the Fufio-Canonian law. Fufio-Canonian law. It was the prerequisite for anyone's liberation. Do you understand? And when they implemented the black laws, 11 years later, under a guy named John M. Stone, created what you call the pig laws. That was the extension and the elevation of the prison system that they implemented. So under the pig laws, you can go to jail for just being unemployed. That's how serious it was. It was called convict catechism. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. So they knew by freeing up some so-called emancipating some of the slaves or indigent servants and all that, that will create an industrious and a compliant workforce. That was the reason. So it was to give them a little bit of peace of mind to keep them content to a level to work for the corporation. So they made them think that they was free to a certain extent, so they will apply themselves from that burden that they was already in through the manumissions as a work of a job. See, they all was just still implementing flat-out slavery, but disguising it through the laws and treaties and all that.
Yes.
You understand? Their intent was not spiritual.
Did that manumission come from the church? Where did that manumission come from?
This
the
is
laws of
manumission. Very important. Very important.
Okay.
Because this is the gray area or the loophole that they are slipping through with all this. and it's called the Fufio-Cananian Law, F-U-F-I-O, Cananian, C-A-N-N-I-N-I-A-N. And look up pig laws.
P-I-G?
Yes. This coincides with the black laws. This was the extension. That's what elevated the incorporations and the corporations tremendously. They locked up guys. They locked up anybody or any slave that stole over $10. So it boosted up the prison system. Check that out.
Wow.
And they went and here we are. That was the threshold and the origin of the prison system being on the rise. And when they discovered that was another way to facilitate slavery in codification. Another form of emancipation. Check that out.
They did a damn good job, brother. I appreciate your call. I'm looking at that now. Okay. Black codes and pig laws. Slavery by another name. I'll be damned. Yep.
Oh, wow.
You see that, Beth?
No, I haven't. I'm punching it in.
Yeah. Wow. You got some very studious listening.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It just coming to me, man. Leave it. It's not my information to hold, but it just come in and I look into it and I use my common sense and what I've learned from other people before, my small mistakes, and put that together like you doing, and bring it to the people and let them decide on their own consciousness or how they're gonna move in their paradigm.
Yes. That's the way I do it. You're totally correct. All right, brother. I appreciate your call.
Thank you. Excellent call.
Wow. I'm looking at this, man. Give me 1 second. I'm going to bring that up because it's. I'm looking at it. I'm going to enlarge it, and it's one paragraph that talks about. It talks about pig law, and if I can get it. 1 second.
Talks about pig law. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's another name for slavery. That's what they say. All right, here we go. Black codes and pig laws. Immediately after the Civil War ended, several states enacted black codes that allowed African Americans certain rights, such as legalized marriages, ownership of property, and limited access to the court, but denied them the rights to testify against whites, who was doing all the dirt, to serve on juries or any state militia. They couldn't vote or start a job without the approval of the previous employer. Whoa, they still do that today. They want to know.
Yeah, everything is still in place.
Yes. These codes were all repealed in 1866 when Reconstruction began. But after the failure of Reconstruction in 1877 and the removal of black men from political offices, several states began enacting a series of laws intended to circumscribe the lives of black African Americans. Harsh contract laws penalize everyone attempting to leave a job before an advance had been worked off. Pig laws unfairly penalize poor African Americans for crimes such as stealing a farm animal, and vagrancy statutes made it a crime to be unemployed. Wow. Many misdemeanors or trivial offenses were treated as felony with harsh sentences of prison. I read that when I did some of Abraham Lincoln's tracks. Last sentence. The pig laws stayed on the books for decades and were expanded with even more discriminatory laws once the Jim Crow era began.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary. That is really a mess. You hear me?
I mean, it gets worse. So the more you dig,
Yes, that's what I was saying before. Yep. And I need to do some research in the Reconstruction era, because that's when they put a lot of blacks were put in office. It says, but after the failure of Reconstruction, now to destroy it, they removed black men from political positions. Southern states began again enacted a series of laws extended to circumscribe the lives of African Americans. That's what's still in place today. Pig law.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could almost call a city ordinance a pig law.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's more than a notion when you think about it. It's scary.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Really, yeah. However, the knowledge of it is enough for you to start thinking about it. And once you think about it, I would think you would want to start trying to do something about it. Now, I got information today. Some of the people are getting, they're getting phone calls from Virginia, Sterling, Virginia. And that is where you get the State Department to certify your birth certificate over the state. The federal government will authenticate it over the state, and that's a very powerful position for all of us to be in. So I'm going to say, when I'm not changing the mode, but I'm going to say to all the listeners, you must get your birth certificate squared away. And if you go to my website and go to the top where it says blog, open it up and go down to birth certificates, you can read as to how to go about it and what you're going to do, what to do with it when you get it.
Now,
I've been
what's
getting
your website, Ron?
Yep, my website is ronmarch.com.
Okay.
I'm going there right now to make sure. Maybe I need to put a little bit more on there. People seem to, I don't know, not understand or not really getting it as to, always trying to rush, make a mistake. Here we go. RonMarch.com. Welcome to the Ron March Show. You go to the top where it says blog, tap it, then you're going to go down where it says state birth certificate. I want it to be known, I'm going to say this, that everyone in America has two different birth certificates. Bev, you will contest to that, I'm sure. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. I said you will contest to the fact that there are two different birth certificates. Everyone has one. There's a county birth, and then there's a state birth. You want the state birth certificate, and you want them to authenticate it, or, as they would say, certify it. And you'll have to ask for the long form, L-O-N-G, long form. Now, there's a company. I can't explain how they got the contract, but there's a company called Vital Check. So what you can do is go to www.vitalcheck.com/birth certificate. This company will do all of your work for you. Now, a lot of people say, I already got my birth certificate. I'm not even going to discuss that. I'm telling you that you have to get your state birth certificate. And they'll have you, Vital Check will take you through an application form, and you'll pay them with a credit card to get your birth certificate long form certified. And certification means there will be a state seal attached to your birth certificate. They will attach it. You're asking for one document, and they're going to send you two documents. And they will be attached by the seal. It has been authenticated that now you have your live birth record. After you receive that, you will have to fill out two forms. And I can give you the forms if you email me, or you can look them up for yourself. The first form is called application. Let me go directly to it. And I can read it to you right off the bat. Find it real quick. And there you go. All right, the first form is called a cover sheet. Here's the title: Authentication Cover Sheet. AUTHEN TICATIONS. Authentications Cover Sheet. Then you will need your now you're going to need the application for them to certify. Man, would you believe my computer froze? Yes.
Your what?
My computer. All right, I got it going. It froze.
Oh, okay.
This time you better do something.
All right. I can say that if they don't follow the instructions, they won't send you the right one. You have to do it right.
Yep. It has to be done correct. Now, the second sheet that you need is called Request for Authentication Service. Request for Authentications with an S, service. Request for Authentication Service. You'll fill out those two forms with your state authenticated a birth certificate, and you will mail it to Sterling, Virginia. Excuse me. The address is United States Department of State, 44132. If you email me, I'll just send it out. I'll send this out to you.
Yeah.
Go through it. It's a lot of writing. But it's called Mercure Circle Drive, P.O. Box 1206, Sterling, Virginia, 20166-1206. So I got those two forms that you need. Now, in order to start your process, you must have your birth certificate, and it must be authenticated at the end by John Kerry, the Secretary of State. And that's what it's all about. Now, once you get that, my whole when I get mine, I'm going to tell you now, mine is already in Virginia. I'm waiting on them to mail it back. Once I get it back, my whole program is going to be put into another mode. And I'm not going to even discuss issues of freedom, let's put it that way. If you don't have your birth certificate, there's no need of you trying to tell me, ask me questions, because it ain't none of your business. If you don't have your birth certificate and start the process. But that'll eliminate a whole lot of chin music that we don't need. Somebody to call in and let somebody know, and let us know how much you know. We don't need to hear. Must. M-U-S-T. You must get your birth certificate processed correctly, and then we can discuss freedom. That's why I don't talk about it. A lot of people have called me, I cut them off. I said, I'm not talking about that. So either call somebody else or whatever. I'm not talking about it. We'll go from there. Everybody got that?
Yeah. And also, you have sent me a very interesting YouTube about this RIS agent. Yes. And the information that she's giving you is just, oh, my God.
Unbelievable, huh?
Yes, it is.
Sherry Peel. What was her name? Sherry Peel. I can't remember. Jackson.
Sherry Peel Jackson.
Yes. She gives you a story on the invisible rules of IRS. If anyone wants that information, you can email me, and I'll send you a link where you can go online and pull it up. But you can do it tonight. You put in Sherry Peel, P-E-E-L, P-E-E-L, Sherry, C-H-E-R-R-Y, Sherry Peel Jackson. And then you can put / if you want, Invisible IRS. And it's an hour, a little more than an hour and 14 minutes, something like 32 minutes, an hour and 42 minutes. But it's very enlightening, very educational.
Yeah.
And how did you like the way she just talked about your friend and mine, Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton?
She talk about them just like you talk about them.
You ain't kidding. And then jumped in them Jack Lake preachers' butts right in the square in their butt.
She did. I said, she's some kin to Ron March.
You ain't kidding. She was right on the money. I'm telling you. Yeah. They are nothing but useless pieces of trash. I'm telling you. And as long as they stay in office, which they're going to struggle to stay there because they're living so good, if we don't go around them and ignore them, we will always be in bondage. Praying is not going to get you out of bondage because you don't know how to pray. None of you. Why? Because you don't know what truth is. How can you pray if you don't understand truth? And how can you understand truth if you're taking the language and the lessons from the European? He has never taught truth. I just showed you where he's using the Bible as a trick and tell you can't go to heaven because you don't pay your bills. You are a sinner. How can you be a good Christian if you make a contract and don't live up to the contract?
Mm-hmm.
That's the hang-up. And the worst thing about that contract, you lived up to it, but Christianity said you did not. How can they do that? And why would you keep falling for that man? That's the scary part.
Yeah.
Yep. So what about your chat room? Your chat room wheeling and dealing with what they doing? Anything?
They listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can call 347-215-8041 and push the number 1. That's 347-215-8041. This is the time for you to ask Ron some questions, and he can give you the answer. Yeah, This is it's just amazing when you start seeing all this. Now, just like you was just telling us about the articles and the black code and all of that, it's still in effect today.
Yes.
This
yes.
is, they might have put it together back in 1724, but it's still in effect.
Yes. They kind of modernize it and add legalese, but they constantly do the same thing.
Yeah.
And here's another humdinger that I've talked about in the past, and I will do more of it in the future. Rule 5.1. Rule 5.1. It talks about how to challenge a statute. So I'll ask the Christian, how can you disobey a law when it's not a law? How can you sin when it's not a sin?
Right.
That's the part that blows you. Now, I'd love to ask my sister that. She is well versed on the book, but I know I couldn't get that far. But if I had the opportunity to sit down with her, I'd ask her, how can you sin when you don't know what a sin is?
Yeah.
The only sin that your Creator holds against you is in common law. There are only two sins that you can commit. Number one is murder, and number two is destruction of someone else's property. Everything else is BS. And this rule, let me say it better, everything else are statutes, ordinances, codes, pig laws, color of law, everything else. How do I know? Because they have a rule called Rule 5.1. And it's in their books that the only one that can certify a statute as being a law is the Attorney General. And he has to come into the courtroom where you are and display the law before you as a plaintiff and them as a defendant. And I will guarantee you no Attorney General is going to do that, because he would be committing fraud, and you could bring charges against him. Because in order for any statute to become law, it has to be, you have to go to your state constitution and find the article in the Constitution that describes a law. And all of them are very close in the fact that you have to read the statute 3 times in open legislation
right.
in both houses, the Senate and the Congress.
Now,
House of Representatives.
Which state constitution would you use? Would you use the one from the 18, or would you use the modified one that they have? Because I know each state has the original one, and then they have the modified one.
Okay. The modified one is known as a municipal one. That's the one that they put legalese and color of law in to trick you.
Okay.
You would want to go back to the original Constitution. It's difficult to find some of them. But the closest you can get to the original is the one you would want to use.
Now, what about what a lot of, okay, so the courts is saying that the attorneys can't go back and use laws past a certain date, but you can go in the
Correct.
courtroom and you can use those laws.
Correct. But now you're getting back to the birth certificate. If you go into court without your certified birth certificate, I'm exaggerating the power just a little bit. But if you go in court as we have been going in court, it's a mock court. The judge can set up any rules that he wants. So the bar, knowing that the older laws are the ones that should be used, the bar told the members you cannot use any law written prior to 1938, I think it was, either 35 or 38. Now, that stands in their mock courts. Your job as a sovereign is to stay out of that court. But if you're drawn into the court, you're going to have to use your knowledge of law, and I'll get to that in a minute, to change the jurisdiction
take it out of that court and move it to federal court. You're going to change the jurisdiction because in that lower court, like in Detroit, you got 36, then you go to Third Circuit, and then you have the appellate court. All of those courts are BS. They can give you some time, don't get me wrong, but they're all full of it because they're only working on statutes, fictitious law that don't exist. So, when you go to federal court, the ball game changes, and you're going to put in your initial paperwork that you're going to challenge with Rule 5.1, whatever you were charged with down there in that lower court. And you are ready to subpoena. You don't have to do it because the court will do it. They will subpoena the Attorney General to come down and prove to the courts that the law they busted you on was a real law. So if you use any law you want to use, 1900, 1800, 1700, because that one good law is called the Clearfield Doctrine. Everybody should look that law up. The Clearfield Doctrine law means if any corporation come after you for monetary reasons, they must come after you as another natural person. Think about that for a minute. That law was written in 17-something. It's called the Clearfield Doctrine. If we take a break, what time is it? Going on?
It's almost time. It's time to go. Yeah. It's almost. We got.
Well, can you can stay over a little bit? I mean, I'm just asking. I don't have to, but since we had such a bumpy start, I figured we could give them enough. So let's take a 5-minute break now, and we'll come back and give them 20 minutes. That's it. Is that good?
Okay. That's
all
good.
Right. All right.
Okay. Private commercial paper is used by corporate government, then government loses its sovereignty statute and becomes no different than a mere private corporation. That's saying anything.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Did you Google that?
Yeah.
And
I got it in my chat room for the people where I got it from.
Okay, that's good.
It's Anti-Corruption Society Files, WordPress.com.
Okay, that sounds good. So they can see it. If I talk about it, they can read it.
Yeah, they can. Yeah.
Yeah. This is why. Are we on the air now?
Yeah, we're on the air.
Oh, okay. This is why I got happy when the Supreme Court ruled that corporations are human beings. And the news media tricked everybody by acting like it was a disgrace. How can that be?
Mm-hmm.
You get it? Now, when you read what you just read, that's the most exciting news that you could give anyone, because all corporations are fictitious. Read that again, what you said, Ben.
What the Clearfield Doctrine is saying is that when private commercial paper is used by corporate government, then government loses its sovereignty statute and become no different than a mere private corporation.
Correct. Now, all people that have all caps are private corporations. So a corporation, they're saying they have to become private corporations, which means they have to send a person named General Motors into court. It didn't say anything about sending a representative, correct, Beth? They've been getting away with attorneys coming in
representing them in court. Clearfield Doctrine says you cannot do that. Now, if that person that comes in is going to say their name is General Motors, then you want to put them on the stand because they're a private corporation, and you want to cross-examine them on the issue or the violation that you are being charged with. And you know none of them will get on the stand. You've never seen an attorney be put on the stand because he's a liar when he puts on his shoes in the morning. Every attorney.
Now, they can use this doctrine because it was in 1942, so they can
use it. Yeah, but
yeah.
Okay, but I am 1942. I was sure that it was before. That one was before. Maybe I had another one mixed up with it. But if that was put in place in 1942, well, okay, we'll go with that.
I guess a Supreme Court statute, Clearfield Trust Company versus the United States, 318 U.S. 363, 1942.
Yep. J.C. Penney's was the defendant, but I guarantee you J.C. Penney's did not show up. They sent attorneys in there. And probably if you pull up that case, I'm looking at what you read, J.C. Penney's probably lost because it was all about a check that was improperly endorsed, and somebody cashed it. And J.C. Penney said they wasn't going to pay it because it was improperly endorsed. And I would have to go back, and I don't have that law of mine to deal with it, but it dealt with that check and that company. And the person that cashed the check got away with it because J.C. Penney did not come in and represent themselves. But I'd have to read that to give you more information. So I'll leave that alone. You dig? Now, another one, the Erie Doctrine rule for the United States District must apply to the law. That Erie Doctrine rule came from a railroad case that the Erie Railroad was coming down the track, and a man was walking on the property of the railroad, and a board or a pipe or something was hanging out, and it cut his head off when the train went by.
Wow.
And there was a big lawsuit, and the courts ruled that since he was not a member of Erie, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So they ruled against the family. Now, don't ask me how they did that, but they had to have that case be in place in order for the New Deal to be in place. I'd have to go back and research that again to give you that information. It's been a little while since I did a program on that. But all I was bringing up to Clearfield Doctrine was that there are what they call statutes at large. And I am convinced that every statute at large was challenged by the Rule 5.1, which challenges all statutes. And once the Attorney General shows up and proves that it is a law, it becomes a statute at large. And according to the books, if you look up statutes at large, there's about 1,100 of them, of real law. And don't get me to tell you what they are, but they break them down. They got them broken down. And there's a lot of them. So you have to know what you're looking for if you go in there. And I'm not a law student, so I don't really know how to do all that. But I know that the Clearfield Doctrine is a statute at large, and there are a couple of more that pertain to us that I know of that are statutes at large. But the courts don't like to deal with that because it deals with common law. And common law is private law. which means that they cannot use their color of law against you as a private citizen. But you're not a private citizen unless your birth certificate is properly processed to become a private citizen, which separates you from the straw man. It's almost as simple as if you, Bev, get all your paperwork in place as your birth certificate, and you go downtown and get charged with, I'll just say a felony, whatever it may be, and they give you 10 years on the charge.
Right.
You have the right to lay your birth certificate down and tell the judge, put that in jail for 10 years. I ain't going nowhere. Because number one, the law that you submitted was not a real law. That's number one. Number two, I am out of your jurisdiction, so you cannot sentence me as a natural person. And the only reason you got away with it yesterday was because I was part of that straw man, but today I am not a part of this because I got my papers from the Secretary of State to prove that I'm not that straw man. You see how powerful it is?
Yeah.
Now, there is I'll call it an unwritten law because a lot of people don't know about it. Attorneys know about it. All crimes, have you ever heard this before? All crimes are commercial. Have you ever heard
all
that
crimes are commercial.
Yes. And I mean all crimes. That's why some people go to jail and other people don't. Because when they put those bonds on you, $1 million bond, if you pay the bond, I'm not sure how it works, but if you pay the bond and give it up, you don't have to go to jail.
Wait, if you do the bond, if you pay the bond, you don't have to go to jail.
Correct. But
right.
all crimes are commercial. In other words, I said in layman terms, all crimes have a price. All crimes have a price. So if you pay the price, you don't have a crime. And they say that the price is always in the bond.
So that's why they set a bond for you. And so they do $1 million bond if you come up with the 10%, or if they say face value, if you come up with it, you don't have to go to jail.
Oh, no. If they say $1 million, you got to pay $1 million to stay out of jail. But if you're going to stay out just till the trial comes up,
right,
because you haven't admitted guilt, then you could get out on 10%.
Okay.
You know, but that I guess 100,000 would be 10%. You come up with 100,000, you can get out. But if you pay the $1 million, that's why they go get the bail bondsman if you jump bail, and he owns that total amount because that's the price of the crime. And the bail bondsman, they used to have the dog band. What's that thing on TV? Dog band or some kind of dog band. He's a bail bondsman, licensed to kick doors in to go in and get people who jump bail. It goes back to the Article 4 of the Constitution. Article 4, Section 2 that I read. Well, I read that yesterday. I'm sorry, you may not know about it. But Article, yes, you did. When we did fair debt.
Yeah, I remember you.
Yes, full faith and credit. And I talked about Section 2 when they could go in and get it. That's what that's what upholds slavery. Because they didn't say anything about an innocent trial or a legal trial or an honest trial. And you know down south, like they say in pig law, they were giving you a guilt for stealing a chicken or stealing food to eat. And if you jump and run, they got a right to come and get you. And to add more time on to you after you get you. But you only stole it because you were hungry.
Right.
They don't ever talk about that. And if you run away and go to California, you may live out there a while, but if they come out looking for you and get you, they can drag your butt back to Mississippi, wherever it was. She stole that chicken. So that's the law that upholds, or better yet, upholds the 13th Amendment that I say has nothing to do with freeing slaves. That Article 4 increases slavery, if you ask me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you know, this whole thing that we're in, there's so many avenues of research. And I am lucky to have the knack that I love to relate everything I hear and see related back to black people. That's what gives me my niche. That people like to hear me run my mouth, because I can always bring it right back home. Just like I'm talking right now, I am very upset with religion in regards to teaching it to our children. And, you know, everybody's brainwashed with Christianity. Christmas, everybody celebrates it, you know, to just to name one holiday that's bad. And it all pertains to Jesus. Then we got Easter, that they say is Easter, you know, to Jesus. So we all trying to get to heaven. And they say you can only get to heaven if you're a good person.
Well, we're going in the wrong direction.
Yes, we are. We're definitely going in the wrong direction. And everything that was good for us, such as the religion of Haiti and San Domingo, they labeled it voodoo because it did not have room for Christianity or any other religion other than Islam. And it was labeled voodoo. And when I say Islam, I'm only talking about believing in one God and be willing to submit to that one God. Now, we all have that in us. You think, Christians think that they have it in, they do. Christians have it in them, but it's manipulated to say you got to go through a white man to get to that God. And they don't realize that. And then when you bring it to their attention, they'll tell you quickly, I don't pay attention to that. No, I know my God is black, and I pray to him. I don't pray to Jesus. Oh, please. Please. And that's all you say all day long. Thank you, Jesus. That kind of crap. It's scary because, you know, I could get hurt. If they would attack me, I wouldn't have lived 5 minutes back in the day. You about been running my. That's what Mama told me. Quit looking at them white people. But I make them mad. I scare them when I look at them. And I know that to be true. That's why when you start putting your head together, Elijah Muhammad said it best. You'll have to tie a string around your finger to remind you that white people are still on earth, because they're not going to come into your zone. Never will they come into your zone. Elijah Muhammad had a lot of money. It's like that girl said the other night, Sherry. He said, if you can prove anything that I've said or teach is a lie, I'll give you $1 million. Nobody took him up on that. That's just like that white guy that she talked about said that if you can show me where I have to pay income tax, I'll give you $550,000, whatever it was. If it's so powerful, nobody came forward. What does that tell you? And look at all the loopholes that we have to put up with when it comes to religion. If they're not molesting children, they're fornication or whatever you call it, dealing with other men's wives and women in the street. All types of negatives that we read about daily. But then people will say, my preacher ain't like that. How do you know? You know, how do you know? You ain't with him 24/7. And the only reason that even any one of them repents For example, I mentioned it to a guy the other day about that Cleflo Dollar. Did you hear about that?
No, what happened with him?
You heard that name before, Cleflo Dollar.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's got an airplane, and he was in a storm, and the airplane shook him up a little bit, and he had to make a emergency landing, which was all good. But now he wants a bigger plane, so he wants his people to donate $30,000. I think it's $3,000 a piece, because the plane costs $65 million that he wants, and he asked his people, his followers, to buy it for him. And it stayed up on his website or wherever they saw it a while until some of the black cats, newscasters, got a hold to it and started blowing it, and he took it down. Mercy. And then that Eddie Long, I didn't got to go through all his crimes. They say his church is booming again.
What?
That's what I heard. When I say booming, the membership is back up.
Right.
You know, everybody was talking about they ain't going back and all that stuff. They're back in there. And right here in Detroit,
sound like some mental illness is going on.
Yeah, well, whatever. Right here in Detroit, the Reverend Butler over there at 9 Miles and Lash, he got into some sexual problems with his parishioner, and he retired. His wife took over the church. You know, he was so super rich, he had 3 airplane jets. 3 jets. You know? So, anyway, let's, what do we got? We got a little after 8. Do you have any callers or any questions in your chat room?
I don't have any hands raised on the phone, and I don't have any questions in the chat room.
All right. Well, I will apologize for the hookup. We're going to find out why it is that my WebEx did not take my microphone. That's what the problem was.
Okay.
And, I can't explain why, but I don't really know. But I'll get back with Andre, and I'll be on full come Saturday.
Okay, Saturday at 4.
Yes. Yep.
All righty.
All right.
Well, Ron, I think that is it. And as always, very informative. We appreciate you. And so you will be back on Saturday. You'll be back Tuesday. At what time do you come on Tuesday?
7 o'clock.
At 7, and then you'll be back Wednesday at 6. So, and I will be with you Wednesday at 6 p.m. So until then, thank you, Ron, and we definitely appreciate you.
All right. I appreciate you. Okay. Have a good evening. And goodbye to everyone. I'll say not goodbye, I'll say peace. All right?
Okay.